Masechet Eruvin, Daf Ayin Vav. We begin the new Perek, seventh Perek, dealing with separations. And when you have a window within a wall, is that considered a separation in order to make two Eruvin? But if there is a window, can you make one Eruv out of the two? And so the definition and size of that window. And so we'll get into some geometry today. So you might want to take out a pen and paper so you could draw the and calculate. Okay, halon sheben shete haserot arba'a al arba'a betoch asara me'arvin shenaim v'im rasu me'arvin ehad. A little bigger. Okay, when you have a window between two courtyards, and the window needs to be four tefachim by 4 tefachim in order to be considered an opening, then you can make an eruv between them. Or if you want, you can keep them separate. It also has to be betoch asara, has to be below 8. So if we just look at a picture of this, just focus on the red square right now. So if it's, as long as it's below 10 tefachim, or even part of it is below 10 tefachim, and it's big enough to be 4 by 4, then that is considered an opening. So say it the other way around. If I have a wall that's 10 tefachim high and no openings in it, then that's a wall. That's completely separates the two courtyards, and there's no way to join them in the eruv. That is the standard definition of a partition 10 tefachim high and no breaks in it. So as long as there is a window 4 by 4, I guess a person can fit through a 4 by 4 window if you crawl through, and it's less than 10 tefachim, then it can go both ways. It can be separate, and you can make one eruv here and one on the other side. Or if you put both pieces of bread in one place, then you can join them together as one. Good. The next Mishnah just says the opposite. Pachot me'arba'a al arba'a, o lema'ala me'asara, me'arvin shenaim, me'eve'en me'arvin ehad. If there is a window that's anywhere, but it's smaller than 4 by 4, or it's bigger, but it's above 10, then you have to treat the two courtyards as separate, and you cannot join them together in one eruv by putting the bread in one place. All right, so the Mishnah is simple enough. Gemara, lema tenan setama keraban Shimon ben Gamliel de'amar kol pachot marba'a kelavud dameh. Where does this dimension of 4 tefachim come from? Perhaps it's based on Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. We saw a while ago that he says lavud is 4 tefachim. In general, Rabbanan say anything less than 3 is called lavud, which means if I have a wall and there's a space of 3 or less tefachim, then it's considered as if it's all filled in. That's why when you're building your sukkah, you could put the lavud strings less than 3 tefachim apart, and it's considered all filled in.
Less than 4.
What?
Less than 3 or less than 4?
So Rabbanan say less than 3. Rashbag is more. It's not sometimes it's a kula, sometimes it's a chumrah, depending on what you're trying to do. But he says it's 4. So therefore, that would make sense that he is the author of this Mishnah, because here, if you have a window that's less than 4, then it would be lavud. It's all filled in. So that's why you can't consider it an opening and making it one eruv. If it's 4 or more, then there's no lavud, and then that's why it's considered an opening. All right, that would make sense. However, we say we don't want the Mishnah to be like only one opinion, especially only one minority opinion. So we'd prefer the Mishnah to follow everyone. And so we are able to reconcile that. Afilu tema kerabanan ad kan la piligi rabanan ale Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel ela le'anyan levudin aval le'anyan pitcha afilu Rabbanan modudi k'arba'a al arba'a chashib ve'ila la chashib. It can be Rabbanan also. And Rabbanan have one definition for lavud and one definition for an opening. They argue with Rashbag and they say lavud is only 3 or less. 3 or less, it's considered as if it's filled in, and so that will help you build a sukkah and do lots of other things. But between 3 and 4, it's not filled in, but it's not considered an opening that a person could go through, or that would be convenient to pass things through. And so therefore, he would agree that you need 4 or more in order for that to be considered an opening that would join together these two courtyards. Okay, so I think that makes perfect sense. And so now the Mishnah can be according to all opinions. It's not really related to lavud. The 4 tefachim is its own definition of an opening. All right, good. Parchot ma'arba'ah, if it's less than that, or right or above. Now, pishita, kemanda amar arba'a al-arba'a betoch asara, memela ana yadana de pachot ma'arba'ah ulemala ma'asara la. Right, so the Mishnah had two parts. The second part is really obvious. Once you know the first half of the Mishnah, right, that has to be that if it's 4 by 4 within 10, then you can join it together. Then wouldn't that be obvious that if it's less than 4 by 4 or if it's above 10, then you couldn't do it. So you really don't need the sefa here at all. Hakamashma'lan tama de kuleh lema'la ma'asara. אבל מקצתו בתוך 10 מערבין שניים, ואם רסו מערבין אחד. Oh, so the second part of it, of the Mishnah, comes to teach us regarding this law. If I only had the first Mishnah, half of the Mishnah, I would think that the window has to be completely under 10 tefachim, the entire thing, right? That is what it sounds like. And so by saying the other way around, so that teaches me that as long as not all of it is above 10 tefachim, even if only part of it is below 10 tefachim, that's enough of a break. It's enough to, I guess, climb into or conveniently pass things through. And so that would be considered sufficient, even if it's just a tiny bit of the window goes below 10 tefachim. All right. Now, it's really not so explicit in the Mishnah that says that. However, we do have a Braita that says this as well. Tanena leha de tanu Rabbanan kulo le'masara miksato betoch asara kulo betoch asara umiksato le'mala masara. Marvin shenaim vimratsu marvin echad. So whether it's nearly all above 10 tefachim and just a little bit is below, is within 10 tefachim from the ground, or if it's all within 10 tefachim but a little bit is sticking up above 10 tefachim, either way it is considered an opening, and therefore if you want to make it, join it together as one eruv, you can, but you don't have to. It can be separated also, same as if the entire window is below. So good. I'm sure they had this baraita already, and so they're able to use this baraita to resolve the redundancy in the Mishnah. And so now, when you read the Mishnah, you'll always think of the baraita also when you read the Sefer. Okay. Hashta kulo le'mala ma'asara u'miksato betoch asara amat ma'arvin shenayim v'imrasu ma'arvin echad. Kulo betoch asara u'miksato le'mala ma'asara mi ba'ya. We have a question on this baraita. The baraita has two cases, but you really don't need both. The first case is it's almost all above 10 tefachim, and just a little bit, like in that picture, is reaching below 10 tefachim. And still you can consider it as if it's as an opening and make an eruv. Well, if only a tiny bit is below 10 tefachim, and you consider it a window, then all the more so, the next case, you don't need to tell me that's also good when most of it is below 10 tefachim. So, right, really the Braita should have only taught the first case. Don't need it, the second case. So the answer is simple. Zo ve'en tzarich lomar zo katane. It's using this style of this is one law, and I don't even need to tell you the second law. So this is a style that we find in Baraitot and other statements, that it says the difficult thing first, the chidush first, and then it tells you something that's even more obvious. Okay, so but it's not coming to teach anything especially new. All right, now we get to the geometry part. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, halon agol. What if I want to have a circular window? Where right now, until now, we were talking about a square, 4 by 4. Good, but what about if it's a circle? Sarich sheyehe behekefo 24 tefachim, ושניים ומשהו מהן בתוך 10, שאם ירבענו נמצא משהו בתוך 10. So it's telling us two things. First of all, it would need a circumference, behekefo, circumference, 24 tefachim. And the second thing he's telling us is that 2 and a little bit need to be need to be under 10 tefachim, so that if you would inscribe a square inside the window, then a little bit of that square would fall under that line. Okay, so we're gonna have to test this out, both of these things. That is this, in fact, do you need 24? If this is 4, we could do the calculation ourselves first, right? So if this is 4, then that means the hypotenuse is about 5.6, and so, right, you got that, right? Because it'll be times 1.4. And so this is 5.6. In that case, if we use a pi as 3, then the circumference actually needs to be 5.6 times 3, which is 16.8, not 24. So, okay, that's what we're going to get to eventually. But right now, Rabbi Yochanan says this is 24, which does not seem correct. Okay, but the other part of it is that the point is that we're looking for a square, a circle that will have the square inside of it, and in order to do that, you want to have it at least 2 and a little bit of the tefachim under, so that when you do inscribe the square, a little bit of the square will be under. Okay, that's Rabbi Yochanan's point. We're not going to discuss the second point, but rather the first one. Michdi kol sheyesh be'kefo shelosha tefachim yesh bo berochbo tefach betresad sagya. Says, hold on, why do you need 24? You shouldn't need that many. First, it's going to try a different calculation altogether. We know that the ratio between okay, first of all, 3, we're calculating pi now. All right, anything that is a circumference of 3 has a rochab of tefach, has a diameter of 1 tefach. And so therefore, if we have the square is 4 big, and now we're assuming we're putting a circle inside the square, so circle inside the square would have a diameter of 4, and then the circumference of 4 times 3 is 12. So really 12 should be enough, and that's half of what Rabbi Yochanan said. All right, well, that was assuming that we were putting the circle window inside the square. He says, okay, that's when the circle's inside. Okay, but if it's outside, then we're going to need more. Okay, so fine, now we're putting it outside. So how much more? So first we make an incorrect calculation, and we say how much bigger is, this is actually area, how much bigger is the area of a circle that has how much bigger is a square around a circle, right? We had this calculation before. Well, the area of a circle is pi r squared. So assuming r is 1, and pi is 3, that would be 3. And the area of a square is 2r, right? If that's the same, squared, which is 4r. So the ratio between the circle and the square around it is 3/4. The circle inside makes up 3/4 of the area of the square. So right now it's assuming that if you put a circle around a square, that's also 4/3 bigger than what's inside. And now taking that area and applying it to our case, if we have a square that's whose circumference, a square, where are we here? A square that is 4 by 4, then and apply 4/3 to it, then you get 16. Right. In other words, building off of this 12 here, right? So we started off saying, let's assume it's 12 because that's just 4 times diameter, and then we said no, it has to be 4/3 bigger, so therefore it's 16. But we say that doesn't work either. No, in fact, when you have I don't have a good picture. When you have a circle. When you have a circle around an entire square, the ratio between that circle and the square is actually bigger than the ratio between the square and the circle inside of it because of the corners. So you actually need to add a little more. Okay, so how much is it in fact? Okay, this is actually the correct calculation here. Every amma that's inside a square, its diagonal is going to be 1.4, right? And so if you take 1.4 times 4 for all, right, for each, because it's a 4, we need 4 tefachim, then you get 5.6 as the hypotenuse, and the 5.6 hypotenuse, that means that's the same as the diameter. So a diameter of 5.6 is 5.6 times 3, which is 16.8. Okay, so I'll go here, it'll be clearer. So if I have this square, which is 4, and that means that the diameter of this is 5.6. And so 5.6 times 3 gives me a circumference of 16.8. Okay, so that's actually rounding down because pi is a little more and the square root of 2 is a little more. Truth is, it would be a little bit more than 17. But with those rounding down numbers, this is the correct formula. So that's how much I need. Right, so to summarize, if I do want to make a circular window, the circular window has to be big enough that a square can fit inside, and that would mean that it has to be a circle with 16.8 circumference. Okay, now Rabbi Yochanan, right? Rabbi Yochanan back above said 24, and what's going on with that? He must have been following the judges of Kesaria. Some call them the judges, some call them the rabbis of Kesaria, and they have a tradition. This is found in Masechet Sukkah also. Damre igula migo ribu'a rib'a ribu'a migo igula palga. They teach. That's what this diagram actually is. That when you have a square, then the circle is 1.5 times the square, and the square around that is 1.5 times the circle, such that this bigger square is double the smaller square. Okay, this seems to be true that the bigger square is double the smaller square. You can actually see this, right, just in this picture, right, if you're taking this square and flipping it here. So that's true. So he seems to be following that, and because of that, he is he's doubling the number, and that's how we got to 24. Or rather making it 50% larger, and that's how we got to 24. The problem is that this was a calculation of area, and Rabbi Yochanan's statement was a calculation of circumference. So Rabbi Yochanan's calculation is not correct. This is a big problem. Tosafot asks about this and says, how could he say something incorrect? All the Rishonim try to deal with it. Some say, well, he does know that 16.8 is not exactly accurate either, because it's a little more than 17, so better to go bigger. Okay, but you don't have to go that much bigger to go to 24. So instead, the Ashbaz says he's calculating not an exact circle, but something like this. The Bach says he's calculating a square and then another square and then another circle, but I don't know why he would be doing that. Actually, I think this Ibn Nechemia Berach is the correct answer. What he's actually saying is that you need a circumference of 24, but an area of 24, and that actually works. A circle whose area is 24, so 24 equals pi r squared. If we take pi just to be 3, then 8 equals r squared. So that means r would be a little less than 3. So the diameter would be a little bit less than 6. And so a diameter of 5.6. That's exactly what we need. So I think that Rabbi Yochanan was quoted here as referring to the circumference, but in actuality, he must have been referring to the area. So I don't think that the rabbis of Kesaria or Rabbi Yochanan actually got it wrong. It's just that somehow in the transferring of their tradition, circumference and area got mixed up. But in the end, the Gemara does have the correct calculation.
Rabbi Yochanan would be arguing about the proper way to translate a square into a circle for the purpose of this halacha.
Yes, that's what he's talking about. If it's if you want to have a circular window and it needs to be 4 by 4, what does 4 by 4 for a square mean for a circle, right? And so that's that. So he said it in one way, but it says behekefo here. But if you just take out behekefo, then it could work.
In Sukkah, I think it's like the same exact machloket, just with how wide a circular sukkah has to be, and I think they say that like no, he's wrong. They bring his opinion and they conclude
Right,
like,
exactly. Masech Sukkah says he's wrong. Yeah. What? Okay. Okay, very good. So next part of the Mishnah, pachot me'arba'a al arba'a. If it's less than 4 by 4. Amar Reb Nachman, lo shanu ela halon sheben shete chatzerot. אבל חלון שבין שני בתים אפילו למעלה מ10 נמה אם רצו לערב מערבין אחד. מה טעמה? ביתה כמן דמלא דמה. Rahman says that this law only applies to a window between 2 courtyards. That's when you can join them as 2. But if it's between 2 houses, well, that's when, if it's between two courtyards, then it has to be under 10. However, if it's between 2 houses, then even if the window is above 10, you can still join the houses together. If you want to, you can join them together or not. Why? Why is a house more lenient than a courtyard? Because I don't have it. I don't have it. No. Okay. Sorry. My tama beta keman demale dame. Why? Because we consider a house as if it is filled. A house is filled with stuff. There's 2 ways to understand it. Either that there's all the furniture in it and tables and things, and so you could always kind of stand on one of these things, or that it's an enclosed area, so it's filled, as an enclosed area, and so therefore the height of 10 tefachim above the ground is flexible, and even higher than 10 tefachim is considered something that would be accessible and can join one house to the other. Good. That was Rav Nachman's halacha, but Rabba has a question about it from a baraita. אחד לי חלון שבין שתי חסרות, ואחד לי חלון שבין שני בתים, ואחד לי חלון שבין שני עליות, ואחד לי חלון שבין שני גגין, ואחד לי חלון שבין שני חדרים, כולן 4 על 4 בתוך 10. All right, you can't get clearer than this. And here's a nice picture that has all of the possibilities. So whether it's between 2 courtyards, or between 2 houses, or between 2 upper stories, or between 2 rooftops, or even between 1 story and another, all of these require 4 by 4 within 10. All right, so there you go. So how come you just said that between houses are one of the things that are mentioned here explicitly, between 2 houses still has to be below 10, and you said it can be above 10. So his answer is Targuma achaserot. Oh, when it says all of them has to be below, but within 10, that within 10 was only referring to the chatzer, the first item on the list. But the other ones could be, some of them could be above 10. The 4 by 4 applies to all of them, but the below 10 does not apply to all the things on the list. Are a little bit difficult to fit in. Veha echad li, but it says katane, right? It's difficult. It says echad li, meaning all of them. They're all good. All right. Targuma arba'a al arba'a. So no, the echad li, the fact that they're all the same regarding the 4 by 4, but they're not all equivalent. That they have to be below 10. The house could be even above 10. Okay, and last question. Ba'amine, רבי אבא מרב נחמן, לול הפתוח מן הבית לעלייה, צריך סולם קבוע להתירו, או אין צריך סולם קבוע להתירו. If I do have an opening between two, that was this case here. And I want to join together this floor with this floor, and there is an opening here that's 4 by 4. Do I need a ladder in order to be there, or is the opening enough? We saw in other cases that if you have a ladder against a wall, then and it's always there on both sides of the wall, according to some opinions, that's considered as if you could go as if it's an opening, because you can go up the ladder and come down. So is it just the window that has to be there, or does it actually need a permanent ladder? Answer: Ki amrinan beta keman demale dame hanemele min hasad aval be'emsa lo odima lo shena. Right, clarifying the question. So when we say that a house is considered as if it's full, what does that apply to? So does that only apply this way, that if this is above 10 tefachim from the ground, that is considered full to the extent that I can go into this window and go to the house next door? Or are you considering it full even all the way up to here, that I don't need a ladder, and this thing on the roof is accessible even vertically, right? Does your law that a house is considered full only apply horizontally or also vertically? And the answer is, Amale eno sarich. You do not need to have a ladder there. Savur mina sulam kavua hud eno sarich. Sulam arai sarich. Okay, maybe you say you don't need a permanent ladder there, but you do need something there. You need some access potentially to a ladder that you would bring there. It doesn't have to be built in, but it has to be something there. Itmar, Amar Rav Yosef bar min Yomi, Amar Rav Nachman, echad sulam kavua ve'echad sulam arai, eno sarich. No, not even that. You don't even need a temporary ladder. The law that a house is considered filled in is sufficient even to go vertically. So, which means it might not be really dependent on the fact that there's furniture you can climb on, but just the fact that it's a house and it's enclosed, you have ladders, you have furniture, you could bring it there. There is some way to get up there that is sufficient, and therefore you can make an eruv between two floors of a home. And next Mishnah we'll do tomorrow, because that's going to go to the next page. Baruch Adonai L'olam. Amen.